Hi everyone, I'm Sweet Melba. Thanks for joining me for Sunday on the Porch. It's a nice spring day here. Well, my husband's going on a trip. He's going on a 2-week trip with a buddy of his. And I started to wonder, should I go do something? I kind of just figured I'd stay home and do the normal, right? But I started thinking, maybe I should go do something. And it's kind of a different kind of stage, really. I have more free time. We have a larger travel budget, so I certainly could. But I have more free time because I'm winding down my work as I'm going to be retiring here soon. And, we've always traveled together. We've been married, almost 19 years now. And there hasn't been many instances where we have not been traveling together. So, what should I do? I'm kind of in a quandary about this. So, anyway, I wonder. So, this hasn't happened very often, but as I said, my husband will be on a 2-week trip coming up here pretty soon. And he is traveling with a buddy of his, and they've traveled together before, but just once before. And I, you know, didn't really have any particular plans, but the more I kind of thought about it, the more I thought, well, maybe I want to go do something. I have the time. Again, since I'm wrapping up projects and getting ready to go into retirement, I have more free time. So I really could go. I probably wouldn't take 2 weeks, maybe a week, at least a week, but probably not two. And but what would I do? And what would I do that might be something that we wouldn't normally do together, kind of a thing. So that's kind of what I've been wondering about. And the time is coming up, so I'm gonna have to make a decision here pretty soon. So it's just a different. I never really thought about it last time, and this time it's just kind of more on my mind that maybe I should go be doing something as well. Or how do I want to spend my time while he's gone? Somebody jokingly the other day said, well, what will you do while he's gone? And it's like I have all these things that I would do that I don't do because he's home. That's not the case. So, anyways, it's like, what should I do? And so that's kind of what I've been thinking about. So traveling solo, I'd be traveling solo in this kind of a situation. And as I said, that's not something that I've done very much of if at all, actually, since we've been married. And not, for any particular reason, it just hasn't come up. We really enjoy traveling together. And while we have different interests, for the most part, my interests kind of match up with his. He has some that don't necessarily match up with mine, in the case of this particular trip, but not something that I'm interested in doing. I've been there, but I'm not interested in expanding the travel in that area. So I don't feel like I'm missing out or anything like that. This is a trip that I wasn't interested in going on. So I could thought about, do I do go on a cruise for a week? Thought about that because I really do enjoy cruising. And maybe I go and visit some family or some friends for a few days or so. I could certainly do that. I'm just trying to figure out if I actually want to go and do something. So traveling solo for me, I did that before we were married. So I can't really think of a time that I've done that truly solo, just me. I've met up with girlfriends and done a couple short little trips here and there, but this would just kind of really be if I decided, to do the solo, it would just be me. And I just wonder if I would enjoy that. I'm not concerned about traveling solo. I'm a pretty cautious person, so I make responsible considerations from that standpoint for my own comfort level. I don't certainly want to be, in an environment I'm not comfortable in. So I just won't go that direction, right? But my husband and I really do share great experiences together when we travel, and we enjoy that. Having the opportunity to talk about what it is that we're doing, kind of the insight or things you kind of think about when you travel to different places, see different cultures, things like that. And traveling by myself, I wouldn't have that. And I wonder if I would really enjoy it as much. I've gotten used to traveling with him, well, again, which I really enjoy. But I wonder, would I enjoy it just by myself, not really having that ongoing dialogue about what I was doing and what activities we were doing, and even just talking about the meals we were having, things of that nature. My other thought, though, too, was, you know, spending the money. We have a larger travel budget now, so that's not a problem. But not that I'd be spending a lot. Do I not spend the money on just myself going on a trip and save it so that he and I can go on another trip together? But the other thing that came to mind was, maybe I want to try this now, a different point in my life. And maybe I want to see what it would be like to travel alone, because it's been so long since I've done that with nobody. Um, so maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe I've got a unique situation here that I can go do that. He's not here. I wouldn't be leaving him at home. He's off enjoying his time. And so maybe I do want to do it. Maybe it's a new thing. I talk about new things at this point in life, midlife, and going into retirement, of revisiting some things that, I used to do and haven't done in a while, haven't thought about it. So it might be a good opportunity, and maybe I should take advantage of it. So I've thought about that too. Maybe it's, going to be a little more relaxing, maybe. Maybe I do some activities that I don't normally do. Try something different, wherever I decide that I might like to go. Whether that's, visiting a different place that I haven't been before, or things like that. So maybe I'm supposed to be taking this opportunity. Maybe this has come up for a reason, right? So that keeps, nagging at me too, thinking, well, maybe I should take this opportunity and try this solo travel and see what I think about it at this point in my life. And, enjoy something a little bit different from that standpoint. And we'll both have stories to share, of course. And I mentioned that, because we always, share things, but certainly we'd be able to do that when we both got back. And I would time it so that, I was back, if not, a day or two before he is, or, a day or two after. So I certainly um, would, keep that in mind as well. So yeah, so maybe it's time to try something a little bit different. I could stay home and just, relax, but I relax as it is now, really. So that really wouldn't be much different. But I enjoy my home. I enjoy being here. I like my house. I enjoy the activity I do at home. The TV shows I like to watch, the different projects that I work on, my YouTube channel, right? But hey, maybe there's another angle there too, that if I do go on my travel solo, that's something I could share with you, and kind of how it went, what I liked, what I didn't like. So that might be good too. But I do like being at home. My parents live nearby, so opportunity, to go up and drive up and see them, go out to dinner, something like that, um, and just, enjoy more of, what I enjoy doing at home. And again, I don't feel uncomfortable at home. I don't mind being by myself. I lived alone for quite a number of years before I met my husband. So that's not an issue. It's just what do I want to do right now? Do I want to travel or do I want to stay home? That is what I'm considering. So, yeah, it's just, I guess it's refreshing too to actually be in a position that I can make that decision either way, knowing that I can travel if I want, or I can stay home if I want. So, hmm. So I kind of think this situation that's presented itself that, maybe it's not so much about traveling per se, do I want to travel? Do I not want to travel? But it's more maybe of an awareness at this point in my life because retirement's right there on the edge. That it's just, making me aware that I'm entering a different stage in my life where I have a different type of flexibility or freedom to consider doing some things that I have been done because I was working more, and my husband was working more before he retired. That we financially, we were spending more on household things than travel, and we've made some adjustments there. So it's maybe this is really more about just being aware of entering a new phase in my life where I have a lot more flexibility to do things that come up that I'm interested in doing, whether that's solo or with my husband, and for him too. And certainly, I think I mentioned earlier, I mean, this certainly is not a situation of, well, he's going, I can't, or, whatever. We can both do what we want to do and, maybe pursue some interests that each of us have that are different. So, we're just in a different phase, and maybe this is kind of the growing pains of getting comfortable with that new arrangement in our life, which is exciting, right? To not feel like you're tied down, that you can't go and do something like that. And in the past when we had pets, if my husband had to go on a business trip or he was going to go visit a friend somewhere, whatever, you know I stayed home with the dogs. I mean, the dogs were always a priority, but that's not a situation in our life anymore. And we decided not to get any more pets for right now. So again, we've made these decisions and we're where we wanted to be, and it feels a little unusual. And maybe that's what this is about for me, is just again the awareness that the things we wanted to put into place and the freedoms we wanted to have, it's here. And how are we going to do that? How am I going to do that? So that may be the real insight here, I think. But again, I think the bigger piece and the bigger awareness for me is, sometimes these questions at this point in my life, and for all of us midlife and going into retirement or in retirement, that these questions we are kind of presented is just part of the journey. It's just part of turning the page onto that next chapter. For some of you that have already kind of been in this transition piece, I'd love to hear your thoughts and how you felt about traveling solo if you did that when you were married. Certainly something different for me. And, how you kind of made your decisions and whatnot. I'd love to hear again, your thoughts and what worked for you, and maybe you have some ideas on what I could do for a week. So, what am I going to do? Well, I'm still thinking about it, and my time is running out. It's getting shorter and shorter for me to make a decision on what I'm going to do. Am I going to travel solo? Am I going to stay home? I think it's been an interesting week because it's only been about a week that I've been thinking about this. Now, I knew he was going on this trip for, months, but it didn't really hit me till about last week. Then I started thinking about this. Well, what am I going to do? I could do something different than I normally do. So, what would that be? Well, stay tuned. I will certainly let you know what I decide to do. So thanks for joining me for this nice spring day for Sunday on the porch. I'm sure you probably heard the birds in the background, maybe a plane or two. But it's a nice day here, and I think we've got a little bit of an early spring. But here where we live, 2 weeks from now, it could be snowing. So we'll enjoy it while we can. So thanks again for joining me. I'm Sweet Melba, and what am I going to do? I'll let you know once I know. Thanks for joining me. Bye bye.